Hello, everybody. Hope you all can hear me tonight. Welcome to the Rooftops of America, every other Sunday live stream. We're in the middle of May. Pretty crazy. Only 2 more weeks to go. Well, this month is over. So, hope everybody's having a good night. And had a good weekend. Hey, Archie. Hey, Alex. Thanks for both being here. I see other people are jumping on too. So, yeah, let's see. Let's start from the top. As you probably have seen, if you get the alerts and all that, the updated Texas episode came out. California's slightly delayed for reasons that I'm not quite privy to get into, but that's okay because I had Texas up my sleeve. And I turned that around. That was actually a pretty fun little drill to go through that footage again. It's actually one of my favorite things about this series. And Texas in particular was a really interesting look because I was watching the footage we shot in December of 2017. So basically almost 7 years because we went and reshot it in November 2024. So almost 7 years. And man, I looked young. Like it was one of the times where I was looking at the footage and watching the old episode, we're like, ugh, there's been some mileage over the last couple of years. So that was really interesting. I think it's definitely, Texas now is definitely more where I wanted it to be. Surprisingly, there was still a piece or two that was not included that, I debated, and I debated waiting till the middle of June and going back when I go back in the beginning of June to El Paso, maybe picking it up. But then I decided, no, sometimes you just got to get out of the stacks and write the damn paper. And that was sort of the case of like, I've got everything. I've got 95% or more of everything I wanted this thing to be for an updated version. Let's just push the button and get it out the door. So it's out the door, and I hope if you get a chance to watch it that you liked it. With me tonight is Southern Tears Peach Hefeweizen. It's got some pretty fun can art, and I'm drinking it out of my Mount Washington. Let's see, this one. Mount Washington Hefeweizen glass I got from the store up there. And it's pretty tasty. The peach goes pretty well with the traditional banana-ish flavor you get from a good Hefeweizen. So, let's see who's all in there. Pretzel, hello. I'm doing well. I hope you are too. Travels and Trails with Ron. Hello. I hope you're doing well. What was the last new high point I claimed? Would have been California. So in August 2024, technically July. So that would have been the last new one. And then we got Eric. Hello. Hope you're doing well. Eric, you were supposed to be getting... Mount Hood has to be coming up for you if it didn't already happen. If it did happen, I hope it went well. If it's coming up, I wish you the best of luck. Bill, thank you for being here. Yeah, the most recent high point, let's see, cool high point. In fact, Nick Simmons became the first person to summit Mount Everest and break 4 in the mile on May 15, 2025. Those are goals that I will never achieve. I don't know what it would take. it'd probably take some hardcore, dedicated, like full-time, intense training for me to even sniff maybe a 5.5 minute mile these days. Uh, and it's funny, I tell you that because I'll tell you a little bit more. Because man, 2025 has been rough. Um, so my most recent was Mount Davis in March. 3 more planned. That's awesome. The high point I've claimed the most times is probably Timms Hill in Wisconsin. I've talked about Timms Hill a lot. Though Delaware is coming up, and Delaware will probably pass it, mainly because I drive by it on a pretty regular basis, and it's just so easy to pop off 202 and go over to Ebright Asmith like real quick. Anytime I go to the Total Wine that's off Claymont, or in Claymont, Delaware, the route I take takes me pretty much right by Ebright Asmith. So I usually go once every 2 months. So Delaware is quickly going to pass it by. I didn't go yet in May. I have been there in May, just not this May. Definitely went in April. So, my brother and I are going for Mansfield this coming weekend. It'll be the first at High Point. That's awesome, Archie. Best of luck. Mansfield's fun. You have any favorite county high points? Never. My county high pointing career is lackluster. I've never really dabbled much in it. I've done probably more second peaks, like most prominent peaks in states, instead of just traditional county high points. And I know there's other folks here that really are more into the county high points. More power to them. But that's I don't know. I don't have any that stand out readily in my mind that I can think of. Probably should get 1 or 2 more. Let's see. The weather is supposed to be cold and rainy. Well, that's the Vermont way. Doing a loop. Want to go up Hellbrook, but still too many. I like the Texas soil. There a little bit of conflict with Apache and Comanche and Western expansion. Yeah, that actually, believe it or not, I felt that was one of the reasons I wanted to go back, was to tell more of a story around Spanish expansion and the inevitable conflict that happens, like how El Paso came to be, why the Spanish were interested in the area around Guadalupe Peak, but couldn't really care about Guadalupe Peak itself. Now, we all know that if they would have found a natural resource, they had gotten word of a natural resource in Guadalupe Peak of, say, silver, gold, or even something like iron or lead, the Spanish would have been much more interested in it. And it was always fascinating to me. One of the big things I thought was really interesting was the salt flats. The Spanish interest in the salt flats wasn't because it was a necessary for life, which it is, but more so that they needed the salt to process the silver ore that was coming out of Bolivia, Mexico, all that. So I can't remember what the silver compound is, because silver doesn't come out as silver. Silver comes out as something else. But in order to process it, they needed all that salt. So, well, they needed not just the salt from there, but a bunch of places. So, St. Clair, Roanoke counties in Illinois, Salt Lake City in County, Tamaulipas in California. Oh, that's cool. Anyone into cycling? USA National Champions taking place next week in Charleston, West Virginia. It's great. He used to be a lot more into cycling. And I'm trying to get back into just the sport itself, trying to ride a little more frequently. And it's been fun to get back into it. Definitely not the rider I used to be, but I am enjoying being back on the cycle again. As for cycling, the sport writ large. If Jess comes on, Loverfishy, as she'll show up in the chat, she's still a um, big cycling fan. In fact, she was not trying to tell her story, but she mentioned it in the last chat. In April, she went and checked off one of the things on her list when she got to go see Paris-Roubaix, one of the great one-day cycling events um, in person in France. And, even seeing a section where they were coming over the pave. So I have to admit, I was a bit envious. So that was pretty cool. But there you go, USA National Championships. Do you do rocking the train for hikes? Not really. Um, One of the things that came out this weekend was the tire drag. So I do that. And, you know, I can't remember what high pointer was. It could have been Stony Burke, who's a legend in this sport, but his advice to somebody once upon a time, and I'm sure it's been passed on over and over, that the best way to get trained for hiking and climbing is to do hiking and climbing, with gear or not. So for me, getting out on the trail with a day pack and all the stuff, yeah, that tends to be um, some of the best way. But I did pull out the Punisher, as I like to call it, the tire drag that has a high point connection, believe it or not. I built it. So, fun story about my tire drag is back when I was living in Tennessee and I had just started this adventure. I did my first big Western peak in, I think it was August 2016. August of 2016, we went and did Arizona, Humphreys, for the first time. And that whole experience taught me so much. There was a lot of life lessons about taking high pointing a bit more seriously that came out of that first trip of Humphreys Peak. And one of them was that I wasn't really adequately training um, for elevation, especially coming from a low elevation area. And the best way to simulate that after doing some research is, in addition to doing intervals and hill climbs and that, was to build a tire drag. So I had a used tire store about a mile down the road from where I was living at the time. And I went down there and asked, I'm like, hey, do you got any used semi truck tires that you don't need, that you're going to get rid of? And they gave me two free. And I built I still got the spare, but I built a tire drag out of one of them. Went to Home Depot, got a bunch of hardware, got a, long eye bolt and a nice good chain, CrossFit harness, and that's the tire drag. I got a picture of it. I'll post it. I'll have to post it on the channel. Um, so that is how I came about that particular beast. And that has been a good piece of training equipment over the years. I'm going to try to do a little bit more this year because it's going to get into Eric's question that just popped up in the chat. So let me go scroll up. So, St. Louis, that's all. Sorry. I don't know if that answers your question, Archie, but I know, Archie, you as a runner, you're sort of well set. You're set up pretty well if you continue in on this for training. Everything you learned as a cross-country runner, distance runner, really does translate well into training for, the bigger climbs. Pretzel, I'd probably drove by a few highways coming by. The drive took me pretty much straight east through the state. Yeah, probably did. When I got to KC, I absolutely had to go to a barbecue place. Can't blame you. How many high points have you only claimed once? Good question. Really good question. Most of them out west. with the exception of Arizona and Texas. But every other western peak, with the exception of the left corner, those 5 up there. Wait, hold on. Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Washington, Oregon. And then man, I've a few on the East Coast too. Especially so here's here's how this sort of shakes out. I'd have to actually sit down and look at the dates. I have a spreadsheet with every time I've visited a high point. So I can get really specific if I need to, but documented every single visit, even like the drive-by visits I talk about, Eberhard Asmuth, I document all of that. So every time. So I can look at the list and get you a better answer, Pretzel. So do you have an updated forecast for High Pointing Adventure? Yeah, I do. For the next new one, I'm definitely leaning into Bora on that second week of August. So specifics are a little up in the air, but I've got a 2-week window basically from the tail end of July, the last week of July/August, and the week after that to go try and make my shot at Bora. So that's going to be probably the only new one I have this year. I am going to be going back to New Jersey to refilm that. There is new high points, but they're not state high points. I am going to do the 5 boroughs of New York and pick up Long Island. So, talking about county high points, I'm sure there's a county or two in there that I'll get. So, Archie, that's coming up probably in the tail end of June if you're around and you want to go on a NYC Long Island adventure. You can consider that a standing invite. You can be my guide. So, and if anybody else is in the area, we can make an event out of it. Head up to the NYC and do the 5 boroughs. So I've got that. That's where I want to be at the end of June. I want to refilm New Jersey either coming up this weekend. I got to dust off the script and see if I want to do a little punch up. The downside is it is Memorial Day, so it might get punted till after I get back from El Paso. And then we have a week's vacation for a family after that. So somewhere around there. So, and I'm also looking at picking up West Virginia again. Be my 3rd visit there and refilm that one in a little more detail. It doesn't need much, but I really would like that one to shape out a little bit more. I really want to actually get some drone footage in that particular area because it's so freaking pretty. So we'll see. And then, like I said, August is Mount Bora Peak. So that's going to be my new one. And since I had intended to do Kansas in March, that'll probably get resuscitated for late September. So redo the Kansas journey I wanted to do. So, Bill, that would be awesome. Any idea when Mitchell will be open? No idea yet. I am looking at. I haven't checked recently, but I have a feeling this season is completely scrubbed. Probably won't be open until this year's probably a bust out for it. We had talked, me and my friend Curtis had talked about doing the Black Crest, refilming Mount Mitchell by the Black Crest. And the storyline would basically go as you go over the peaks, as you head towards Mitchell, talk about those respective peaks and the people that some of those are named after, and the events and all that. So that got put on hold. Take my service companion up Katahdin September 2nd. Thanks. All right, that sounds awesome, and thank you for the happy to. Sometimes I'm not sure how much my advice is worth, but I'm happy to give it, and I hope it helps folks. Steep high points are tough. Physics works against me. So, Scottsbluff looks like it should be a Nebraska. It does. Then how short does it fall? A panorama point? No. Yep, it is like 1,000 feet. The funny thing is, with Nebraska's high point, the county, I want to say north, I want to say it was Banner County, for the longest time, was thought to be the high point. And it wasn't until the 1950s when they took a World War I altimeter and they actually measured that spot in the corner of Nebraska, and that became the new state high point, Panorama Point. So, appropriately named, actually. You do get some sweeping vistas at that location. You can't argue for a panoramic view. But Scottsbluff is cool. Part of the reason, like, Nebraska will get a redo too, but not as the route I took through that will still be the same, because there's so much cool history there. And, those places like Chimney Rock in particular are such touchstones, cultural touchstones. And I'll be honest, I played Oregon Trail in grade school. I remember going by Chimney Rock, so seeing it in person, it lived up to the hype. It literally was that amazing. Like, you couldn't miss it. So Spruce Knob is beautiful. That's correct. Bill, I'll very well might take you up on that offer. I'll keep you posted as it gets closer. Part people say the north entry is possible and not much longer. Your video, Mount Davis, shows you on the tower a 3D map there. That's gone. That was gone the last time I was there last year. It was last year. I drove back up there to get some drone footage, and it was no longer up there. So even the updated version of Mount Davis is now out of date. But one thing is still for sure, that tower is slick as all get out when it's wet and icy. Pretzel boundaries on the docket for me this summer. I'm thinking maybe get Whitney sometime this summer after getting a job. The plan would be to get a group together for that and book it when we're all good to go. Awesome. Well, best of luck on your employment prospects, Pretzel. Which of the remaining high points are you most looking forward to, and which one are you most dreading? Montana, Wyoming, Idaho. Good question. I don't dread any of the ones out in the Pacific Ocean, including Hawaii. Mainly because the territories are so, like, yes, I've got notes on it. I've got plans that I've started putting out and writing up, but they're so far removed. It's still in that world of fantasy. I think I want you to ask that question again after Bora, because I'm not dreading Bora. I know it's a tough nut to crack, but it's not. It's steep, and I don't mind there's a lot of hype around Chicken Out Ridge, but I've read enough trip reports that it's maybe overhyped. And as long as you keep in the present and keep your headspace about you, you'll be okay. So I'm not worried about Bora. Like, I can see that one in my mind's eye. I know it'll be a tough day. Um, nor am I worried about, um, surprisingly, Oregon or Washington, because I'll be using a guide service for that. So for me, that takes a lot of that out of the picture. Um, I won't even put Alaska in here in that group because it's such a different thing altogether that I'm not dreading it, but it will be an experience like no other. And it's going to be, that to me will probably be really in some ways reminiscent of going to the field, and being out in the field forever and a day doing a thing. So, um, and I'd say Granite and Wyoming. Granite because, yeah, you could do South Slope or up the um, ramp or however, or not South Slope, the Southwest Coulier, you know. And I don't know. I can't judge that one yet. And Wyoming is a technical nut to crack. And that one, so those are the two that if I had to choose right now, I'd choose those last. Probably take Alaska before those two. So, and like I said, I don't know if that doesn't, I sort of rambled around your question there a little bit, Archie. Any advice on saddle slide? I have a hiking sling for my service dog. That's about. Um, I'm not quite. Um, I don't, Rick. Honestly, I don't have any advice on that. If anybody in the chat does, though, I can get back to you, and if I do some research. But at the best, right now, no. Um, could you see them voting for the 2020 convention for Texas? And for everybody loves Texas. Guadalupe Peak is a favorite for a reason. Depends how recently they did it there. For Gannett and Granite, it's grizzly country. Will you bring a bear spray or a gun? Bear spray. Want to know why I won't bring a gun? Too many damn bad memories of carrying a freaking M16 with a rucksack in the field. um, it's one of these things where, I'll get smart beforehand with the Rangers and all that. And I feel like if you follow good protocol, bear safety protocol, yes, I completely understand it is grizzly country and the grizzlies own that territory. But if you follow good bear protocol and working in a group is better than not, you're better to be well served. So I just don't want the hassle of carrying a rifle and aim. It's just the weight. God, I just so much. Uh, I was just complaining. It's funny. I was actually complaining about that very thing to my brother the other day. Of one of the things I really, really don't miss about being in the service was that aspect. I don't mind carrying a pack, but the extra hassle of carrying that rifle, because you could never get it where it wasn't just in your way. Sorry. Sidebar. So Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina. Those are some states for High Point Convention. Yeah. I honestly, it's a good question. I don't know why they'll put it in 2027. I could see they haven't done Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, or Virginia. I could see them. Um, I could see him choosing Alabama. I could see him doing Alabama out of that list. Um, there's pretty good support in Oxford. Is it Oxford? I think so. But that whole area, Anniston, that area, there's enough support functions where you could easily do that. Um, so I say they haven't done Virginia. It is, but you got to think once again. Um, what's the area that can support that? Mount Rogers is slightly removed, and you got to understand that every time we do this in the summer, it's also AT season. So if they're doing it in the height of summer, you have all that traffic coming through on the Appalachian Trail as well. So it just is a matter of finding a place. I suppose if you were down the road a bit in Marion, or or even if you went up to Whiteville, but you can't get close to Mount Rogers. So I mean, I suppose that's an option. That's an option. Um, no, Rick, I didn't carry an AR. I carried like the old school M16. Um, funny thing, this particular story is strictly for people that were in the service because they're the only ones that really understand this. And this shows how long I've been out of the service because the weapon I was issued when I joined the Marines was an M16A2. Um, and they stopped issuing M16A2s probably not too long after I got out. They went to the M4. But I was in the Marine Corps, and God, I was in the Marine Corps with 30 years ago. So 93 to 97. But when 2027 hits, I'll have been out for 30 years. But it always was really, really funny to me that when I went and joined the Wisconsin Army National Guard after I got out of the Corps, when I was going into college, I was issued the M16A1 with the 203 slung under it. And it was always hilariously funny to me that it had the fully auto and it worked. And we got to fire it, and it was pretty wild. So, anyway, that's um, God, that's a long, long time ago. But yes, it was hilarious to me that it was almost, yes, you're in the guard now. Here's the generation before. So 10 millimeter is grizzly repellent, not a rifle. Once again, Florida might be a nice pick. Depends where they would host it. I mean, I don't know what Florala can do to support, but you could go further down. That's so there is that. Um, inside to take a quick uh, turn. I'm happy to report that Fearsome Critters is still going, and we'll soon have episodes coming out. I'm hoping to start dropping content and making that channel go live. I think I said June, but I think it's going to be closer to July. So we've got 2 stories that are done with the illustrations. The third story is being illustrated right now. I'm hoping to get the 4th illustrated in June and then start bringing things out in July. So, Rick, thanks for jumping on. Um, I really appreciate it. Have a good night. I joined the Maryland Army National Guard in 2004. Same day Facebook is created. Dude, you've been in for, man, you got your 20. So, um, I'll be honest with you, Pretzel. If I was going to choose one in the out of the southern states, I would once again, I'd love to choose one that hadn't have it or hasn't had it. And of those four that haven't, Alabama's the most obvious one with the easiest to support. But Louisiana would be fun too. Um, Florida, you know, people will come to Florida just so you can hit the beaches. So the Burroughs trip would be after June 22nd through 23rd. That's the weekend I get back from our family vacation, so it wouldn't be happening then. It'd probably happen the weekend after, most likely. I don't want to do it around the 4th of July weekend, so basically, it literally would have to be the 29th, 30th, I think, if we look at the calendar quick. And 28th, 29th would have to be would be the obvious dates. So, Eric, I don't know if that quite answers your question earlier about my plans, but to circle back on that, yeah, new high point in August, and then everything else is repeats, and redoing, putting things up to where I can get some bites on this, hopefully to sell the series and make it hit a bigger market. So when I say sell the series, not stop producing it and making it, but get it into different marketing environments. So I will also readily cop to this real quick. I know I've talked about when I go to El Paso about doing North Franklin Peak, and I've decided no. Why'd I decide no? Well, because I pulled my hamstring this week. As I mentioned, this 2025 is the year that just keeps on giving, and it's not giving good gifts. But in a bit of foolishness, as I was motivating my son to run faster, I decided to chase after him, and that wasn't a good idea. So if you put a percent on it, what are the chances you'll make 50? Right now, I'm betting 80 to 85%. Definitely. I feel that once I get through the basically through this year, and I know with more certainty what the future has, then I can start really dedicating the final push. Part of the reason I'm so bullish on not giving up Idaho this year, because I had to give up Oregon, I had to give up even a thought of giving a shot at Granite. I refuse to give up Idaho because I want to keep the push going. So I really, I wanted to finish this by 50, and guess what? That happened. 50 happened 7 days ago. So 56 is a really good target. And I feel that also gives us enough window to plan the expeditions that are going to be necessary for the expedition, I should say. That's going to be necessary for the Northern Marianas, but also what it would take to do American Samoa. Just have the capital to do it. So 85% is where I'm betting. If Idaho busts out for some reason, that'll drop to 75. But next year, I really want to go hard and make up for this year. So the limiting factor here is capital. I mean, time's a limiting factor too, but capital, especially for the Pacific ones. I don't think I'll struggle recruiting the team. I think there's enough people hungry for another shot or for a shot on Northern Marianas that getting that that one probably is more viable than some of those. But Alaska's Alaska, right? I mean, I can drop to the 15K that it would take to get there, and then, I'm in the 60% that don't make it because, hey, sometimes the mountain doesn't cooperate. I wanted to complete by 40, but it gives me something to look forward to. Yeah, Eric, I feel like you're a much more fit and active climber than I am. So I applaud your efforts. I'm telling you, Pretzel, you'll love Guadalupe. You'll love Guadalupe Peak. It's such a good one. All right, it is 9/11. Oh, and so what am I going to do in El Paso if I'm not going up North Franklin Peak? Rerouted it to Carlsbad Caverns. And before you ask, Pretzel, I will not be chasing after the high point for that national park, but we will be going underground. I've already reserved our slots, and I'm pretty stoked. So that was the one sort of piece, like I would have talked about the Guadalupe Mountains, I allude to, if you want to do more stuff, you could go check out Carlsbad Caverns. But that was the piece where I'm like, that takes too much away. It's a whole different experience. So um, I look forward to going in the dirt. So Carlsbad Caverns is awesome. I love that. I'm looking forward to it. Um, oh my God. Congratulations, Eric. That's amazing. Dude, it gets better and better. Magnus turned 12 on the 8th, and I'm still sort of in shock because I remember when he was going to turn 1. And now he's 12. So hold on, brother. It's going to be a hell of a ride, and embrace it for what it's worth. Happy birthday to your girl. Citas came in right as I was about to start wrapping up, but it's good that you're here. Um, so, anyway, on those bombshells, I hope you guys have a happy couple weeks and a contemplative Memorial Day. But unofficially, summer's almost upon us. So, with that, I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you all when I see you. Thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate it.